How much do partners at a firm make on average? It really depends on the firm and the locations. There's really no answer to that question. The salary surveys online, I know that American Lawyer does one each year, and you can find that information online, but it's really all over the board. What I would typically say, the way to think about partners compensation, there's a lot of ways to think about partner compensation, like how much am I going to make? When you look at the partners with business, if you were to make an average of everything that happens, partners make 1/3 of the revenue they contribute to the firm. That's the typical role of the firm. And hopefully clients bring it, but not always. If a partner generates 3 million per year across all things considered, they're going to probably make around $1 million, especially if it's their own clients, and less if not. Firms will have formulas in terms of how they will distribute revenue to partners and how they'll pay them. But the most common is about, 1/3 of the revenue that you bring in. Another common thing might be 50% of the stuff you build yourself on your own clients, one on own clients, 20% of things other people, your clients, 25% or 20% of, this is just a hypothetical, of the work, something like that. That maybe a base of 200,000. Yeah. So there's all sorts of different formulas that are used. This is just one of them. Different law firms have different formulas. So if you're doing work mainly for other people's clients, maybe you get, 15% or 20% if you're giving work, but you make more typically when you do work on your own clients. This is one reason when you see this statistic, I hope everyone's following because I know this is a little complex, but if a partner gives work to other people, they make less. When you become a senior associate, your billing rate starts rising to the level of partners. And so what that means essentially, when your billing rate gets high to the level of partners, a partner wants to do their own work themselves, and a client would prefer to give work to the partner as opposed to a senior associate. So it becomes much harder for people that are more senior many times to get work. So that's just a way to think about it, if that makes sense. Okay. Do all partners have equal stakes in their firm's profits and losses? No, they don't. People will get larger stakes in the firm profits depending on the received level of contribution. Contribution can be based on a lot of things. Sometimes their financial contribution is one thing. Another type of contribution might be leadership activities in the firm, which could be public recognition. There's just all sorts of formulas that are done. So every firm has their own formulas, and that's formula that a firm uses is really what their strength is. So firms that have the most highly developed formulas, they try all these different things that they try to make work. And the more and those formulas, depending on how they're applied, will make certain attorneys happy and will make other people unhappy. So as a firm matures, they get better formulas in place. And so when you start talking about very established firms, they have very kind of rigid formulas in place that change, but not much. And in younger firms that kind of have loosey-goosey formulas. And so as time goes by, formulas change. So a lot of times you're going to have a different experience as an attorney if you're working at a major firm that's very established versus going to a smaller or a younger firm, because a smaller or younger firm is going to make all sorts of mistakes. It's going to overpay people. It's going to underpay people. Whereas a formula that develops over time is going to make the firm much better. Another thing to remember too, as firms get older, a lot of them will get a lot of bureaucrats in power. And then those bureaucrats will put formulas in place to benefit them, but not necessarily people with business. And then those people will leave. And then the firm will adjust the formula again. Some of the older firms are more difficult in terms of that. I'm just trying to think of this one other way. The way that the firm distributes its profits are very important to a lot of people. And it's really the reason that people leave firms. It's how things work at different firms. And if a firm is losing money or getting money, things will typically change. The way things used to work, I don't know how important this is, but I might as well bring it up. In the 1970s to the early 1980s, what happened in law firms is the profits of the firm were distributed at what's called a lockstep. So meaning first year partners made this much, second year this much, or different tiers, more, third year more, and so forth. That's kind of what happened. And then as consultants came, the consulting industry kind of arose at the same time. And the consulting industry came in and they started hiring consultants from companies like Arthur Andersen, or all these other compensation experts, and all these sort of people came in. And when all these people came in, they said things like, why are you giving all this money to people that are old and not working? Why giving the most money to people that are not old, not working with no clients. And then they basically said, you need to incentivize business generation, hours, all that sort of stuff. And that was like a shock to the system, to firms all over the country. Everything started changing. And then consultants were paid hundreds of thousands of dollars in some cases to come in, develop all these different types of systems and so forth. And that's a history of how all this stuff worked. And that's pretty much what happened with law firms over time. And so it's important to understand that today everything is based on these formulas, consultants and things used. And so different firms have different formulas, but the basic incentive of the formulas is to incentivize business, hours, cooperation, maybe longevity to some extent, bureaucratic contributions, and other things. Those formulas are applied in different ways at different firms. That's just something to understand. So it's important just from a business standpoint to understand what's going on in the background. Sometimes you have firms that are old that may be run by a couple individuals that are applying different formulas in a random way based on who they like and all sorts of things. And that kind of prevents firms from growing. The best firms typically will have kind of democratic processes in place that help all that stuff.